Alex Ansary here, coming to you on the evening of August 27th in the year 2017. I'm not an expert, but I have faith in my own opinion on rational self-defense today, and it's based on some of my own experiences. It's based on the experiences of others, things that I've learned from others, also things that I've watched on YouTube regarding the ongoing civil unrest taking place, the dirty fighting in the street. So it's really a combination of experiences. I also believe that we have multiple lives, so we actually come into this lifetime with past information. And so even if that's a little bit far-fetched for you, who's to say you're any different? I think a lot of things I learned somewhere else regarding Kung Fu, martial arts. I've always had an affinity for the spiritual side of it, and it's still something that I want to explore more of. And I find that society has kind of drifted away from that with the overconsumption of the media aspect of the sport fight. But that is totally natural for people to be training. And what I want to say to you now is, I always felt, that's why I got involved when I was like 12 or 13. I was having like daydreams as a kid about a day where the you-know-what hit the fan. And there was literally a red sky. And it was just kind of a feeling of a movement of a body fighting barehanded to survive. That being more important than relying on a firearm specifically. So this is just like an early Alex Ansary imagination as a preteen, 11 years old, living in the country, Aurora, Oregon, just south of Portland. I've always had an interest in different styles, and with regards to the Bruce Lee books, the philosophy of taking what applies to you and leaving the rest. Also a philosophy that I follow with regards to politics and other things. Over the years, training, getting to know my own body, and then sampling different styles. There was a point in time, and I would just say recent years, to where everything seemed to come together with something that felt perfect with regards to my own body, my strengths, my weaknesses, because you want to maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. So for me, it's a spiritual practice, and it's actually very much tied to having, to a certain degree, a strong energetic field around your body. It's not just self-defense. So I'm bringing this up along with a lot of other points, abstract without notes. I think that self-defense is very important in today's day and age. I also think that it's important for people to not live in fear and to understand more of the history of the martial arts. For a society that is so interested in watching violence, and to a certain degree people at different levels of MMA training, it's more of a barbaric society than a well-trained society with regards to violence. Now, there's a lot of information out there, there's a lot of competing styles, there's a lot of egos, certainly a lot of egos that'll be watching this guy. Who's this guy to be talking about self-defense today? But I'm basically encouraging whatever style it is, a healthy approach to self-defense, not a negative one. Okay? Another negative approach to self-defense that a lot of people have is that it's violent. There's nothing violent. I've come across this stereotype myself, sometimes with family members as a youngster. There's a story about my father and I, and the brief story to that is a period in which I was hitting the bag at 16. He got in my face yelling at me because he had an ego issue about the fact that I was training. I noticed kind of weird behaviors from others, and I don't run around starting fights. But some people can naturally be intimidated by the idea of martial arts or be suspicious of the person that has a strong interest in training because they're so used to seeing violence, violence, violence. Spiritual side of the martial arts, what are you talking about? And so, yeah, talking about healthy well-being, the energy fields, there's a reason why some martial arts studios, traditional ones, will start their training with meditation. And that's also tied to, of course, being a little bit more effective, maybe higher reception to learning new things, new ideas, new techniques. starting a class with, say, a meditation. And some of them may have almost a religious type of doctrine, but I just remember briefly Taekwondo and Hwarangdo and some sort of a preamble about morality and something to that effect. So because I had those early experiences, and also, of course, there's always Kung Fu, the TV show. And then, of course, developing kind of an interest in Chinese history. And then, of course, the history of how Kung Fu was created when an Indian monk traveled to a part of China, a Buddhist temple, and then he found the Buddhist, Bodhidharma. I don't know how to say exactly, enunciate it, but he basically shared with them a number of body movement exercises to keep them more awake and alert, because they were falling asleep during their meditations, because they were weak. They were barely eating anything. So this is as the legend goes. And to teach these Buddhists how to defend themselves with the art of empty-handed self-defense. I think society needs more of that. More of the idea of people training together and it not being about a sport fight and it not necessarily being about fear and actually being beyond the emotion of the excitement of fighting, but really exploring martial arts movements as a spiritual practice. Opening up your aura, opening up your heart, opening up your imagination, opening up your lungs, opening up your creativity as you create your own kata. See, it's practical to me, in my understanding, just giving you my opinion as just some guy. Maximize your strengths. We're not getting into techniques necessarily. I'm sitting in a chair. But create your own kata. So there's certain defensive movements, for example, counters, and moving in different directions, flowing, without even thinking, automatically reacting, moving your body, staying in motion, maybe a particular pace, speeding things up, increasing the intensity and then slowing things down, slowing the movements down, but then moving around and thinking greater awareness as you do it. This focus coming into your consciousness, a peripheral vision, a sense of everything around you as your energy centers come into alignment. And then see there's energy centers in our hand, so someone moving back and forth. I mean, it's a powerful experience. So this is a society in today's day and age that I think needs more of that practical self-defense training. And I think that despite a lot of the information that's out there, some of the stuff, try to be brief, almost comes across as a little complex. Some of the moves and holds that someone very well trained, for example, in certain holds, certain jiu-jitsu, you may need to be very good at it for it to work, depending on what it is. And I'm speaking more wrist holds and other things and other types of automatic or pre-programmed types of defending yourself, like a lot of traditional martial arts. And the idea, in my understanding, is to create an automatic, without thinking, way of responding. So there's only so many ways the human body can move, right? Especially with regards to defense while protecting itself. So certain exercises regarding defense, drilling them over and over and over again, working with a partner. Then there's a Wing Chun version of this called Chi Sao, but it's not exactly the same thing, but it's very similar. And it's based on that movement of energy. It's based on sensitivity. It's not based on brute force. At the same time, right, it's like a yin and a yang. There's an art to hitting hard and stepping into your punch and the exercises involved. And then particular exercises where you step in a punch in different directions, from straight punches to uppercuts and mixing other things together. And for me, there really is a natural flow from various, boxing, street fighting techniques, but also backhands, elbows, and other things. And so, there could be someone teaching, okay, if someone does this, you do this, this, and that. And that's one approach, and some of that is very, very important. But at the same time, A lot of people are concerned about self-defense with a lot of things going on right now. In that case, you're not training for prize fighting or 12 rounds. It's about saving your life or getting someone off of you and continuing to run if there's a gang after you. So modern self-defense training at a fundamental level has to be based around heavy knockout power and teaching women how to hit hard as well, and exercises and drills involving partners back and forth. And the energy expended for someone that really wants to train for a serious situation, to understand you can also deplete yourself just sparring and sparring and sparring and getting hurt. It's really about helping yourself grow and your partner, not just bashing each other's teeth in, but really mastering those particular automatic counters. You think about, I'm sure you've seen the movie Bloodsport. See, how many of us have actually trained blindfolded? With regards to that, the training could be advanced to someone blindfolded, and then of course using their sensitivity to counter. And then maybe counter, grab, and move in. So I'm exploring new ways of training and keeping it really fun. You know, I never got really close to any martial arts school, or a lot of moving around in my youth, but there was a sense of camaraderie. If only I would have stuck with some of the things longer and got into some tournaments, that would have been kind of fun. But I remember camaraderie concerning that period. And I just see the martial arts energetically and people that do maintain some tradition as far more appealing than a lot of the MMA gyms. And I also got a lot of information, mostly a lot of it from someone that had way more experience than I. He actually really influenced me in a way, whether he knew it or not, to stay out of unnecessary fisticuffs. But he gave me a lot of good information about the basics from someone that's literally lived through a very dangerous time in America, in Portland, Oregon in the 70s, and being somewhat involved in the underworld. And so for someone that had a lot of martial arts experience and a lot of training, for me, from my younger years to older, I always want to learn a lot of different techniques and a lot of different stuff. This person was involved in some very violent attacks on his person. But see, a lot of it was based on being able to protect yourself, certain circular motion exercises, or exercises practicing the double block with someone coming right at you. And not everybody gets that type of intense training and to counter automatically. And a lot of attacks do come across in a particular way. And in recent years, there seems to be more people with some street fighting experience, MMA experience, that are literally going to come out with a straight instead of just a haymaker. In the older days, there was more people that were just doing more wild fighting that someone with some martial arts experience would be able to easily deal with. Now you're dealing with different people with their own Cobra Kai, dark side of the martial arts attitude going on. It's a dangerous world. But this person really hammered home the point to me about mastering the techniques, mastering the punch. And then I came to learn that the person could teach me no more. I can teach you no more, because he was teaching within his own belief system, right? And that also was based on his body type, being a guy at 250 or 240 that had that type of Mike Tyson power, devastating power, which was his main asset that saved his ass in hundreds of old school Portland street fights and bouncing. And so the exercises that I recall learning from him, combined with the defensive stuff, combined with other things that I learned on my own, and realized that my body really naturally flowed well with, say, particular elbows or other things, and then reaching a certain point, and even recently, you know, the body through that repetitious training, realizing it's really strong combinations, coming up with your own combinations. It'd be a backhand strike, There's an exercise where you twist back and forth, changing things up and doing a double combo back and forth as you strike. And this is just stuff that I feel like sharing, because it needs to be put out there. And I want to bring some balance to this. It would be nice to see more people able to defend themselves in today's society, and less fearful that it's about violence. At the same time, it would be nice to see more training amongst people where there's more of a peaceful vibe instead of what I feel like it's devolved into, which is really kind of a reflection of our society and the bloodlust. I should wrap these thoughts up with some other concepts. Weapons. Certain self-defense weapons are very effective. A lot of things that are sold in the catalogs are crap, but they're still weapons. Certain hand weapons don't fit well. There's a lot of controversy around certain things. I've always found it odd that it's such a pro-gun culture, but such a crackdown on just non-lethal blunt weapons. I just thought that was kind of odd. It's really all about the person. Okay? So if someone has a certain amount of skill, they should be able to keep a hold of their baton, or to be able to use their baton in an effective manner. And there are less people capable of, say, using a very effective weapon, but not something that everybody has faith in, which is fine, but it's still an effective weapon, and it's the spring version of the baton. And there's certain ways people use those weapons, and certain ways in which a weapon could be easily taken away by someone that doesn't know how to use those weapons or keep it in motion, to keep in motion. Or in particular, the spring baton, it's a whip. It's not the same thing as a stick. There's also other issues. I should bring up morality when using weapons. Yeah, I don't believe in being immoral. I don't believe in dirty fighting unless you're fighting for your life. So when it's coming to like a street fight or something like that, weapons should be used in self-defense with regards to a assault. And that person, in my eyes, has the moral high ground if they're defending themselves against someone that can really mess them up. But I think that there is restraint that should always be used. So I've never ran around carrying knives because I never had it planned. Of course, there's other purposes for knives. I've never considered myself willing to stab someone, punch someone, knock someone out, or something to that effect, blunt object if possible, fine. But there's a point, there's a line that I don't cross. Other people don't have a line there to hold them back. And they may think that they have the right to do anything to somebody, and even take it to the point where they curb stop them, and they put them in the hospital for a long, long time. Does the punishment fit the crime? Furthermore, I think that martial artists on the dark side bring bad things to them, and it seems that, wow, there's a metaphor here, just like with nation states bringing bad things to them. But men that have done really bad things to other men, even if they don't act like they're spiritual, they look over their shoulder a lot. And that's also something that I learned from someone else's stories. It's the fear they live with as they get older. Yeah, they may have been a tough guy in their biggest, baddest years, but after so many broken noses, so many broken elbows, so many trips to the hospital, and they get older and one gets over on them, some people don't understand the concept of karma, and then they learn the hard way. So I think that being a moral person is very important. I think that it's dangerous to get involved in the martial arts world and create bad karma for yourself, because that's going to attract that same fighting energy, and there's always someone tougher. There's always someone tougher. So the idea is to avoid conflict, right? And understand the difference between offensive behavior. Ooh, look at me with my no fear shirt. Or what was that other major brand? Tap out. I'm a guy that likes to tap people out. Tap out. What's up? It's a very unhealthy society, unhinged society. And, there's a lot of conspiracies about the death of Bruce Lee, but most of you know that he was highly criticized for bringing martial arts to the West. And while I don't necessarily agree with that stance, I understand where that stance was coming from and where that concern was coming from about the deadly arts exploding in the West, accessible to all people, all ages. And now people learn how to kill other people on YouTube. Martial arts and training is one thing. But the morality is another part of self-defense. And that's what I'm going to leave you with.